What if I told you that most men aren't living, they're performing? Playing a part in a script they never wrote, chasing applause that was never meant for them? No man is free who is not the master of himself. That's not just a quote, it's a warning. From Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who rose from slavery to shape empires of thought. Yet here you are, living like a servant, not to a tyrant, not to a ruler, but to her affection, her attention, her unpredictable approval. You give your time, your money, your sleep, your sanity, sacrificed at the altar of being good enough for a woman who, if we're being brutally honest, was never truly yours. And if that line cuts deep, let it. It means you're still alive, still capable of waking up. Epictetus said it plainly. If someone handed your body over to any stranger on the street, you'd be furious. But when you hand over your mind, your peace, your clarity, to anyone who smiles at you, you don't even blink. Have you no shame? And this is what we've become. Calloused hands and paper-thin resolve. Grown men with warrior blood, bowing at the feet of a pretty face, praying for a text, for her to stay, for her to see us as worthy. You think this is love? No, brother. This is confusion dressed up as chivalry. Epictetus never blamed women. He didn't have to. He aimed the sword at men, at our weakness for validation, our fear of rejection, our inability to separate what we want from what we need. And what did he teach above all else? That you owe your happiness to no woman. Let that burn a little. You owe your happiness to no woman. If you think you do, if your day rises or falls with her approval, you've already surrendered the only thing the gods gave you full dominion over: your reason, your judgment, your soul. In his Enchiridion, Epictetus said, keep in mind, every day, death, exile, and all that seems dreadful, especially the truth that none of these things are within your power. You know what else isn't in your power? Her emotions, her loyalty, her decisions, her love. And yet every morning, men build their identity on that foundation of sand. They text first. They wait 3 hours for a reply. They spiral in silence. Then they Google what to text her after she pulls away. Brother, Epictetus is rolling in his Stoic grave. He taught us the simplest, most profound law of freedom. Some things are up to us, and some are not. Her affection, not up to you. Her moods, not up to you. Her attention, not up to you. But your time, your actions, your values, your purpose, those are yours, fully, always. And when you trade those in for her comfort, for her presence, for her maybe, you've committed what Epictetus would call philosophical suicide, the death of your inner citadel. You weren't born to orbit her. You weren't made to become the emotional butler of a woman who won't even pick up after her own chaos. But that's exactly what you do. And the reason? No one taught you to say no. Not to her. Not to the fantasy. Not to the voice inside that says, if I lose her, I'll be nothing. You were told that losing yourself for love was noble. But what if that very sacrifice is the root of your downfall? Epictetus had a word for that kind of self-betrayal. He said, no man is free who is not master of himself. Let those words echo for a moment. Because if you find yourself constantly bending to keep a woman around, saying yes when your whole being screams no, biting your tongue out of fear she'll get upset, sacrificing your peace just to keep the relationship from imploding. Then you're not her partner. You're her hostage. And the ransom? Your dignity. Here's the real tragedy. You've been conditioned to think that's love. That tolerating disrespect is strength. That losing yourself is romantic. That emotional chaos is somehow a sign of deep, passionate connection. But in doing so, you betray everything Stoicism stands for. Epictetus never said, "Tolerate madness in the name of love." What he actually said was this: when someone provokes you, remember that it is your judgment that provokes you. Hold back that judgment and you are safe. Translation: if she yells, let her. If she storms out, open the door. If she manipulates through silence or withheld affection, walk away. Not to punish her, but to protect your center. Because once you hand your emotional thermostat to someone else, you've already surrendered your power. Your peace should be yours alone to command. Epictetus would remind you, it's not events that disturb us, but our judgment about them. And that brings us to an uncomfortable truth. The one thing a man must never do with a woman is let her rule him. Not because she's bad, not because she's weak, but because no person on earth deserves control over your inner state unless you've given it freely. And most men hand it over without even realizing it. Look around. You'll see men suffering through toxic relationships, justifying the pain with 4 little words: "But I love her." Epictetus would scoff and say, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. In other words, if love means self-destruction, it isn't love, it's fear dressed up in poetry. Fear of being alone, fear of not being wanted, fear of starting over, and fear, Epictetus knew, is the true prison. It makes slaves out of men, emotional slaves, financial slaves, slaves to lust, memory, validation. So what's the Stoic antidote? He said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Ask yourself, is her reaction in your control? Her opinion? Her loyalty? The answer is always no. So why have you made her the sun in your sky? There's one more trap men fall into. Trying to fix her. You think you're the savior in her storm. That with enough love and effort, she'll finally heal and love you back. But Epictetus wouldn't entertain your fantasy for a second. It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. And if you believe you can change someone who refuses to change herself, you've learned nothing. Men waste years trying to repair women who were never theirs to fix. And in doing so, they become less. They apologize for being men. They mute their truth. They dim their light, all to maintain a bond that only survives when they shrink. That isn't love. That's spiritual self-slaughter. And while you bleed beneath the illusion of being a good man, Epictetus is whispering across time. Don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. You say you follow Stoic principles, but the moment her silence shakes you, do you really? Embody it. Don't just talk about discipline. Live it. Don't post about boundaries, hold them. Because the moment you sacrifice your values for the fleeting warmth of a woman's attention, you've already lost, not just her, but something far more precious: yourself. And once you lose yourself, what remains? A hollowed-out shell of compromise. A man who laughs at jokes that insult his spirit, who tolerates disrespect he once vowed never to accept, who mistakes emotional surrender for love, simply because he's too afraid to walk away and start over. That isn't stoicism, that's self-abandonment. And Epictetus, the former slave who schooled emperors, wouldn't pity you. He'd challenge you. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. You said you wanted peace. Then why are you chasing chaos in heels? You said you wanted a queen. Then why are you sharing your bed with a tyrant? You said you were a man. Then why do you beg like a child for affection that should be freely given? To Epictetus, this is tragedy, not because you're weak, but because you forgot something sacred: your divine right to autonomy. Not isolation, autonomy. He reminded us, no great thing is created suddenly. There must be time, there must be patience. So give your best, and then let go. The outcome? It's not yours to command. So stop forcing connection. Stop over-explaining. Stop trying to earn love through performance. Because performance is not strength. It's insecurity in costume. And the stage you're dancing on? It was built by your fear of not being enough. A man who works overtime for a woman's approval will never gain her respect. Why? Because the moment she senses that you're afraid to lose her, she knows she owns you. Here's what you must never do with a woman. Turn her into your judge, your therapist, your God. When you do, you create a courtroom out of your relationship. She becomes the jury, and you're the defendant, always apologizing, always guessing, always holding your breath. That's not partnership, that's bondage. And in it, you silence your truth, walk on eggshells, and betray your instincts, all just to avoid her disappointment. But Stoicism teaches something else. It is not he who gives abuse or blows who insults you, but your opinion that these things are insulting. So what if she calls you names? What if she provokes you? Do you lash out? No. You choose not to be disturbed. You stand still, centered, unmoved. That is freedom. But modern men don't want freedom. They want permission to lead, to speak, to exist with confidence. And worst of all, they wait for women to grant that permission. How far we've strayed from the wisdom of the ancients. Epictetus didn't wait for anyone to validate him. He seized control of his own soul. We are disturbed not by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens. He didn't say, go get closure. He said, go get clarity inside yourself. That's the truth most men run from. Because the more you outsource your confidence, the more fragile it becomes. Each time her praise becomes your pride. Each time her approval sets your compass. You surrender the very thing that makes you a man. And worst of all, when you chase love at the cost of your values, you're not being romantic. You're being ruled. You lose your center for her, and then wonder why you feel hollow. But here's the real test. Can you stay rooted when everything about her tries to shake you? You are a man in exile from yourself. So what is it that you must never do with a woman? It's not complicated. Never let her define your worth. Never trade your principles for her approval. Never let her emotional storms dictate the climate of your mind. Because if she has the power to build you up, then she holds the power to break you down. And any man who gives someone else the power to unmake him was never truly made in the first place. He was just an echo, a reflection, a man who once stood for something and now stands for whatever keeps the peace. Today, men aren't crumbling from a lack of love, they're crumbling from a lack of self-love. The kind that's forged in the fires of discipline, upheld by firm boundaries, and proven through the courage to refuse to compromise their truth, refuse to chase validation, refuse to bow for the sake of temporary companionship. Epictetus didn't tell us to be agreeable. He didn't write, "Become who she wants." He wrote, "Seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you will go on well." That's not surrender. That's Stoic detachment. That's power. To remain unmoved when the world pulls. To desire only what aligns with nature. And chasing a woman who disrespects you. That's not nature. That's desperation. That's regression. That's beneath you. You were not made to orbit her moods. You were not designed to revolve around her approval. You are not a leaf. You are a mountain, not a mirror, a man. But how many times have you betrayed that truth? How many times have you bitten your tongue just to keep her from exploding? How many times have you silenced your instincts just to avoid conflict? How many times have you told yourself, "It's not worth the fight," and yet lost a piece of your soul every time? Epictetus warned us, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And yet here we are, in a world of men who call themselves kings while dancing on the strings of feminine approval. You think you're strong because you endure her chaos? No. You're strong when you don't need her chaos to feel alive. Here's the part no one tells you. Many women test you not because they're cruel, but because instinct compels them to. To see if you waver. To see if you fold. And most of you do. With flowers. With apologies you don't mean. With promises you can't keep. With futures you're not even sure you want anymore. But Epictetus told us plainly, when someone acts badly toward you, it is from their impression that it is right. They cannot act from yours, only from theirs. So stop trying to make her see your worth. If she doesn't, she was never meant to. If she disrespects you, it says more about her nature than your value. And when you beg her to understand, when you argue for recognition, you are not fighting for love. You are proving that you believe you are unworthy without her validation. A man must never do that. He must never plead for love, never defend his value, never teach someone how to treat him. That's not leadership. That's surrender, and not the Stoic kind. The Stoic man does not chase. He builds. He cultivates. He becomes. And if she sees that, great. If she doesn't, even better. You've just been spared. Because the kind of woman who is truly worthy of a man grounded in virtue, she won't require him to abandon that virtue just to keep her. She will recognize it. She will match it. She will rise under its calm strength. But she cannot meet that man. If that man has forgotten who he is, she cannot align with your strength if you've abandoned it just to be loved. And when a man trades self-respect for affection, he doesn't win a partner, he loses himself. Soft, shapeless, unsure. That's what you become the moment you compromise your core to keep someone close. But here's the truth most men never want to face. You were never born to convince someone to stay. You were born to choose yourself. Again and again. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it hurts. Especially when it means walking away from the warmth of her arms to stay true to your spine. Because if you must betray your values in exchange for affection, what you're receiving isn't love. It's tolerance. It's utility. It's conditional affection, wrapped in emotional currency and sealed with sexual attention. And the cost? It's not money. It's your soul. Epictetus never told us to hate women. That was never the lesson. What he told us was to love wisdom more than comfort, to honor virtue more than validation, and never confuse being wanted with being respected. But let's be real, most men don't want that message. They'd rather think love just hasn't found them yet than face the truth that they've never learned to respect themselves. They blame her coldness, her inconsistency, her mood swings, instead of confronting the fact that they surrendered their standards to avoid being alone. And that's the real tragedy. Not that women are complex, but that men are aimless. So what do? They give, and give, and give, their time, their peace of mind, their ambition, their money, until they have nothing left to give. And when the relationship crumbles, they wonder why it hurt so much. It's not because they lost her. It's because they lost themselves while trying to keep her. But here's what Epictetus would tell you. One final lesson. It is better to die of hunger, exempt from grief and fear, than to live in affluence with perturbation. In other words, better to be alone with your soul intact, than partnered in chaos with your identity shattered. So stop calling it patience. You're not patient. You're scared. Stop calling it love. You're not in love. You're addicted to the validation. Stop calling it a phase. It's not. It's a test. And you're failing it every day you refuse to walk away. Because the one line you must never cross, the one thing a man must never do with a woman, is betray himself to be loved by her. Once you do that, you lose far more than a relationship. You lose your identity. You lose your direction. You lose your ability to lead your own damn life. So if anything you've heard so far stings, good. That means something ancient in you is waking up. That discomfort you feel? It's the fire. The reminder that you weren't put on this earth to kneel at the altar of emotional volatility. You were made to build something unshakable within. A man who is unmoved, unbroken, unbought. Let the world call you cold. Let her call you arrogant. Let weak men label you distant. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be unshaken. And if that fire inside you has started to flicker again, don't run from it. Don't retreat to the numb comfort of false intimacy. Because the moment you awaken, the world will try to put you back to sleep. It'll call you too rigid, too intense, too masculine. But hear this loud and clear. It is not cruelty to demand respect. It is not toxic to have boundaries. And it is not weakness to walk away from anything that costs you your clarity. You were trained to be emotionally available, but never emotionally sovereign. You were told to be vulnerable, but never taught to guard your integrity. You were conditioned to crave close scenes, but never taught to honor your own compass. And what has that earned you? Sleepless nights, anxious mornings, a heart so stretched for others that you forgot what it feels like to beat for yourself. But this moment, this discomfort, this realization, it's not punishment, it's your turning point. Because when a man reclaims his peace, when he stops chasing what drains him, he doesn't just find clarity, he becomes untouchable. He no longer needs to raise his voice to be heard. He no longer begs to be seen. He no longer proves himself to women who never deserved his presence. He lives his truth, silently, powerfully, and without apology. He no longer waits to be chosen. He chooses. And that kind of man terrifies the world. Not because he is violent, but because he cannot be manipulated. He does not kneel to beauty. He does not barter his values for affection. He would rather sit in solitude than shrink for someone's temporary attention. Let them call it loneliness. Let them call it coldness. Let them call it bitterness. They call it names because they fear it. Because your peace threatens everything they were taught to believe about a man. Sometimes peace doesn't look like smiling next to someone on a beach. Sometimes peace looks like closing the door, locking it, and hearing your thoughts bounce back like steel. Sometimes peace is silence, not because you're afraid to speak, but because you no longer need to explain yourself. You stop replying. You stop chasing. You stop craving closure from people who only opened you to exploit your softness. And when that grief rises, let it. Let the ache come. That ache is not weakness. That is transformation. That is the death of the man trained to perform, to please, to submit. Let that version of you die. Because the man rising now, he does not flinch at disrespect. He does not beg for what was never promised. And he does not worship women who only came to consume, not to build. You are not broken for walking away. You are not heartless for refusing to be used. You are not lost just because you are no longer clinging. You are simply remembering how to stand. That, my brother, is the foundation of Stoic strength. Epictetus said, "Discipline yourself in all things, for what truly belongs to you cannot be taken. Your mind is yours. Your dignity is yours. Your purpose, your values, your peace, all yours. And any woman who asks you to surrender those things for her love is not your partner. She is your test." There are too many men who gave up their vision, their fire, their soul, just to feel desired for a fleeting moment. Don't be one of them. Be the man who waits in stillness, who walks in silence when needed, who desires, but never worships. Because not every beautiful woman is a gift. Some are distractions. Some are storms. Some are just mirrors reflecting the work you still haven't done inside. Let go. Not just of her, but of the version of you that thought you needed her to feel alive. Let go of the lie that told you masculinity must be tamed to be accepted. Let go of the poison that made you think your worth had to be earned through her approval. You were not built to orbit her. You were built to stand firm, rooted in truth. And if she cannot stand beside your strength, let her drift. When she walks, let her. When she doubts, remain still. When the world begs you to kneel for affection, stand even taller. Because the man who never betrays himself never loses anything worth keeping. That, brother, is what Epictetus would teach. Not to fear being unloved, but to fear forgetting who you are. Not to hate women, but to honor wisdom. Not to chase their love, but to guard your inner stillness as if it were the last flame on earth. Because in a world that will constantly try to strip you of your focus, your values, and your soul, a man's peace is not a luxury. It is his final fortress. And if you've made it this far, if your chest feels tight, if your breath is slower, if something ancient inside you just stirred awake, then don't run from that. Hold it, respect it. That's the part of you the world tried to dull. The part that remembers who you were before they told you to kneel. So now what? Don't apologize for waking up. Don't explain your clarity to people still trapped in fog. Don't ask for permission to become the man you were meant to be. Just move forward, focused, free, unshaken, unbought, unbroken. And if this message struck a chord, if it made you pause, made you question, made you feel that something inside you just turned to steel, then honor it. Act on it. Like this video. Share it with a brother who's still stuck in confusion. Subscribe to stay connected to the truth. Because this isn't about content. It's about calling. Support the channel through the link in the description. Not just for us, but for every man who's still stuck in silence, waiting for someone to say what he's never had the words to express. Be that voice. Be that fire. Be the proof that Epictetus was right. He handed us the truth, but only we can live it.
Thanks for spending time here. If this resonated with you, give it a like, send it to a friend, and make sure you're subscribed. Your support means everything.